Yo, I love this deck. I really do. What's happening, YouTube? It's your homie S. Dot coming back to you with another video. And today's video, to round out the end of this week, is orange-black tanks. I love this deck. I've been playing this deck for a while. Megatron, I've been trying to find him a home. I've tried it in Airstrike. I've tried it and I've played it a couple of times on, like Wise channel. Shout out to Make Every Card Hurt. I played it on his channel a couple times. I think I played it on mine. Nah, I might not have, or maybe on a live stream or something. But I really like this deck. You know, obviously when Captain Impactor was revealed from Siege 2 Wave 4, it was the perfect slot to be able to play a potentially aggressive, tank deck. Now, of course, 3-wide orange decks are horribly placed in this meta, but this deck actually works on a different axis. Similar to like David's deck, I did make some changes to talk with the homies from Vector Sigma. And I made some changes to it, and I'm actually gonna get some games in with it soon. I will say it plays on a different axis, and it takes me out of my comfort zone a little bit, which is actually cool because normally I'm not really into trying new things. I'll say that. Well, I am in the realm of blue. I'll say that because I'm not usually an orange player. But this deck works on a different axis. Of course, being 3-wide orange, it is going to have difficulty versus Airstrike Patrol. But maybe the side deck can potentially help supplement that. And the deck has some nice survivability, as I'll show you guys here in a second. But before I get into all that, we got to talk about these Wave 5 spoilers. I actually am not gonna. You can check out Card of the Day on VectorSigma.info's webpage. I myself have some of my opinions on some of the cards that have been coming out, as well as Scott, Vin, John Palmer, and Dan. And I want to say that's it. They usually, we kind of mix each other up in terms of the player base and opinions that we have on these cards. So definitely check out VectorSigma.info for all that cool stuff. But I actually think I'm also going to still make some videos on top of those anyway, and just some of my favorite cards. So I'm not going to talk about every single card. I don't got to talk about some of my favorite cards and some insight on those cards and what I think about them as the set goes along. So it'll be some cool insight, and it'll give us some time. And we got still have a month and some change, or about 2 months, a little under 2 months to go for Wave 5. But I'm definitely excited for Titan Masters attack now. All the reveals, we got hit with a lot of reveals this week. If you guys are into, if you guys aren't familiar with, Vector Sigma also does tech talks regarding all the cards, and literally listing every single card and talking about each of them in depth, and about if they think they're good or bad for competitive play, if they're just their potential on those cards in general. Of course, a lot of those opinions are going to be kind of suppressed and taken with a grain of salt at the moment, because we haven't seen the entire set yet. Some effects and some cards don't make sense as we see them, at one point, and then it's like, oh, okay, I see why this card is good now, type thing. So, you'll see a card in the beginning. Don't try not to judge too hard, because again, when cards come out later on, it'll make a lot more sense, like Overwhelming Advantage. I think they showed Overwhelming Advantage at first, and we thought the effect was cool, but it was like, it's going to need some decent support for that, and a simple card like Wedge Formation like really tuned in with Overwhelming Advantage and made that the powerhouse it is. So one card I do think that will help out this orange-black tank deck is that the new card Crystal of Power. It is a weapon and armor. Yes, it is susceptible to being getting got by enforcement batons and a bashing shield, but I think it still has merit because it being an armor. You can play it, retrieve it with Hunker Down, and depending on the situation, you might be able to keep it on defense and a couple other things. Some other applications with the card. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this orange-black deck profile. Alright guys, so we're sitting here talking about the orange-black tanks, and like I said, I think this deck is potentially viable, not tier 1, but at least tier 2, and potentially, can take out the tier 1 decks, being as just about all the tier 1 decks are blue decks outside of Airstrike Patrol, and being at most of the field when you go into a tournament, you should, I'd say that back, in a universal tournament where people are coming all over from different parts of the country to play, I would expect at least 80% of the field to be blue decks, and then, excuse me, okay, I gotta step that back a second. 70% or 60% of the field to be blue decks, most of the field, and then you're gonna have your rogue decks that try to counter it, like your orange-black decks. I don't think that deck's gonna be on the super rise, but I do think it, or a giant rise rather, but I do think it still has merit as a rogue anti-meta strategy, if you will, to be able to counter those blue decks. And then of course you have Airstrike Patrol. It is the only viable straight-up orange deck right now. The fact that you can attack with Night Flight, with the General Optimus version or any other version versions. You know, obviously General Optimus being the best version in my opinion, and then the Springer version, and then any other version trails behind that. But any attack that they do can potentially scale from 6 to 9, maybe sometimes even 10 attack, depending on how well your flips are, with playing no action or upgrade. So I see Airstrike Patrol staying around for a long time, to be honest with you. You can, easily pair them so many different ways with different 12-star characters. You have between the maximum you can do with your big guy with the Airstrike Patrol is 12, and it goes on from there. So yeah, so getting back on subject, like I said, I think this deck has some merit, and after I show you guys the battle deck, you'll see why, especially against blue decks. I think Lord Megatron's effect is really good against Jetfire, because how Jetfire, it'll make them think twice about how fast they want to mill out. One of the things that I really learned about playing Megatron through the past couple of months is when I first saw the card, of course, we saw his bot mode here. So his bot mode says, when your opponent is, when your opponent reshuffles their deck, they choose one of their characters and do damage to it equal to this character's attack. So the ruling, first of all, how I always thought the ruling was, but apparently it wasn't, but then it was made to be this way to make him better, is when he's attacking and your opponent decks out while he's attacking, any of your attack flips immediately, any of your orange attack flips obviously immediately count towards his attack. So if you attack with him with a grenade launcher, for example, and flip a double orange and another orange, that'll be 11 attack. So they'll have to deal 11 to that character because it'll count the 3, orange flips and then his attack with the grenade launcher as well. So, but in general, I found that it's not about getting his effect, or trying to get his effect off when you're that's ideal. I take that back, but it's not going to happen most of the time. Even the 4 damage by itself, I mean, one shot stand, one shot fall is my favorite card in the game, right? So I mean, dealing 4 damage, yes, your opponent gets to choose, but you want to put them in a position by the time they deck out that the damage, no matter whether it's 4, no matter whether it's 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever, is going to hurt them. So that means getting rid of their Battle Masters, because you don't obviously want to keep their Battle Master on the field and they're about to deck out, because they easily just put all that damage on that character. There will be some unfortunate situations where his weakness lies, is you can kind of control when they're going to deck out, but then sometimes you can't, and it gets awkward when they have a character that has 8 health, or 8 damage on it, only 2 health left, like Flame War, for example, and you're going to attack into Flame War, and they're decking out while you're attacking, and Megatron's effect will proc, then they just put the damage on Flame War, and then the battle just stops, and that's it. So that's one of the annoying things about the effect. So you do really want to try to isolate and play the game in a way where when you finally do get Lord Megatron's effect off, it's going to actually put them in a tough position. One of the other best case scenarios, of course, is when you're attacking with Megatron and they have like 2 characters left, for example. It's like, okay, so I'm attacking Megatron into your guy for 9 attack, with just 9 attack total, including flips. And it's like, okay, so you're going to put 9 damage on the guy that I'm attacking, or you're going to put 9 damage on the other character and KO it, or whatever the situation is. So like I said, you want to try to put pressure on it when you use the effect. I found that it's not important to necessarily speed through your deck, like with a whole bunch of system reboots and heated battles and all that. Now, granted, I do play heated battle in the deck, and we'll get to that here in a second, but it's not like super important to like speed through and make your opponent deck out, because again, if they're playing Battle Masters and things like that, you actually want to be very strategic on how you make them deck out. So that's enough about Lord Megatron. Well, obviously, of course, we got to talk about his bot mode, or his alt mode, for a second. I truly believe in his bot mode screwing with your opponent. The fact that they can't get any greens when you flip his effect, and let's actually talk about that here for a second. If you don't know by now, so he's a 6/17/3 in this mode. And when you flip to this mode, your opponent scraps scraps cards from the top of their deck equal to this character's defense. So, one of the best players in this deck, Hunker Down, you put a composite armor on him, the effect will resolve, and he'll trigger the effect then, making your opponent mill 6 cards, getting them closer to decking out. Again, that's not the focal point necessarily, but at the same time, making your opponent mill out, I've noticed a lot of times, I'll pay attention when I flip Megatron, even for like 3 or 4 with a bashing shield or whatever, and they'll flip 4 cards. I'll pay attention. The 4 cards they flipped, if I didn't use his effect when I attacked them, I would pay attention to the first 2 cards they would flip, and also that 3rd card. And I say that because bearing there's not a white, in play for when they flip, because of course you're going to flip 2 more cards for defense. When they would have flipped those 2 cards for defense, that 3rd card is the card they would have drawn. And a lot of times, like I said, I'll pay attention to that 3rd card and be like, oh wow, that was a good card he could have had, but he's not going to be able to have because Megatron effect bypasses that. So it's not the best thing in the world, but it is relevant. I think it's, I think it very, very much so is relevant. It's screwing up your opponent's, yeah, sure, their deck reshuffles and things like that, but I mean, I think it has merit. And so we'll talk about Impactor right here, the reason why this deck is actually even viable as a orange-black aggressive deck. His effect is perfect. It fits perfect as a 7-star character, 3 attack, 2 defense, or excuse me, yeah, 2 defense and 12 health in this mode. 7 stars, which of course fits perfectly. And also, by the way, Megatron 12 stars with 17 health is really, really strong. So yeah, so Impactor, he has 4 attack and 4 attack and 1 defense in his mode, and he has that bold 1. So a lot of times I think you'll open the game with attacking with him, and probably potentially send Megatron in second, and then Demolisher third. Demolisher is very important because he is your draw engine of the deck. You do have a couple other draw cards in here, but they're not like sincere draw cards like Demolisher is. So he has a definite respectable 12 health, and add into Megatron 17, and then of course we all know what Demolisher does. Demolisher's 7 health, that's a total of 36 health, and there's some cards in here that will potentially scale your health pool in total up a little higher, which I think is the reason, one of the other reasons why I think this can be one of the potential viable 3-wide orange decks. Now keep in mind, again, like I said, I don't think this is a tier 1 deck, but at least could be a tier 2 deck, and definitely push out those other top decks, and I think it has some merit, and I'm going to do some games with it this weekend, and I'll give it a try. So, and we'll talk about Demolisher here for a second. Of course, the mad guy right here, you flip cards equal to his defense, call it bold, but it's not actually bold. Of course, cards like W5 Gyro Blaster will stop it, but like any card that says your opponent can't use bold or tough, that won't affect Demolisher because you're just flipping additional battle cards equal to this character's defense. Same with cards like Kickback. Kickback won't be affected by cards that say your opponent cannot use bold, like Acid Storm, I guess is a really good, or a first example that comes off the top of my head that you can't use that effect with. But you get a Bashing Shield on him, and you get a Composite Armor. You're flipping 5 cards, or you're flipping 7 cards respectively, plus your 2 flips, so that's 9 cards. If you flip a white, that's 11 cards. And with this being orange-black, you can pretty much scale this effect or this attack to be pretty high and get us some nice guaranteed damage. And of course, his draw effect was what I talked about a little bit earlier. He's 3 attack, 7 health, and 3 defense. Well, obviously 7 health in both modes, and 3 defense in this mode, and he's also ranged in this mode, so you which is kind of important sometimes because I play Sturdy Javelin in here, so sometimes I might actually flip to this mode. The flip sequences get a little awkward, but I mean, it is what it is. But you will draw cards equal to the number of other tanks you have in the battlefield. So other tanks meaning not including him. So as long as you have these 2 guys on the field, you will be able to at least draw 2 cards, and that's always a feel good when you're able to play that card. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the deck list itself. Alright guys, so the one card I always start off all my deck lists with, of course you guys can guess it, it's going to be Peace Through Tyranny. Peace Through Tyranny is the actual only double orange card I have in this deck. Now I did have Improvised Shield in this deck, and well, you know what, I'm going to pause there and not get ahead of myself. We'll talk about that when I get to the armors. So 3 Peace Through Tyranny, this card still does have merit when you get in a situation where your opponent's tabbed down and you have a bot that you can sacrifice with Peace Through Tyranny and get an attack on that character and then get another attack on that target character. This card can definitely be very strong. I can't see myself not playing any double oranges in the deck, so I think between Improvised Shield and this one, this is definitely the clear-cut choice to be able to play and get some decent damage in. Of course, you will potentially use the effect here and there. And actually, I will put these like this. I want to start actually doing my deck list like this, so you can take a picture of it if you'd like a picture visual. And I will also get this deck list jotted down and put it in the comment section pinned, so make sure you check that out. So 3 Peace Through Tyranny. Next up, we have the best card in the deck, I think, that you really want to see at least once per game. Since the dawn of the beginning of this Transformers TCG, Hunker Down was always a very cool card that I admired and wanted to be good. It's better than it's ever been at this point, and I'm hoping it'll get even better with Wave 4 coming out, or excuse me, Wave 5 coming out. But Hunker Down is a very great card, very good card. You, like I said, you want to see at least, well, I didn't say that, but once per game, you really want to see at least one of these. I don't want to say really far ahead when you play this, but it's really strong when you do play it. Being able to flip your Demolisher and your, like, there's turns where you'll have Megatron out, and then you'll have Captain Impactor flipped and attacked already, and then there'll be a turn where you attack with Demolisher, and then your next turn you might actually be able to flip Megatron, and that's the best case scenario, to be able to flip everybody back down and then retrieve 2 to 3 armors from your scrap pile, which is really strong. There are some other ways you can manipulate and not actually waste your flip for the turn. I can't really, because I'm blanking right now. There are some plays potentially where I will, like, let's say have Demolisher like this, and then I'll actually roll out for, or not roll out, excuse me, hunker down first, and I just manipulate my flips to where, like, I'm getting certain effects when I want them, and then flip a bot for turn, and then, you know, go after whatever, and do things like that. keep in mind that with Hunker Down, I know that was like a horrible explanation, but like I said, there's some trickery and some things you can do with Hunker Down. It's actually pretty cool. Hopefully I can get that on camera this weekend and showcase that for you guys. I'll be doing some commentary. I know I haven't done commentary in a while, so if you guys are a fan of my commentary, I'll be back at it this weekend, so be looking forward to it. But also with Hunker Down, so you can only put the armors that you get from your scrap pile on tanks, and if they already have an armor on them, you're not able to, you know, trade an armor for another one. They have to have no armor on them, so that's actually very important. And it doesn't have to necessarily flip either. Like, you can just have Megatron in alt mode already and then play. Like, I've done that as well too. There's a good example. I play Hunker Down first to get the composite armor or whatever, then I'll flip Megatron for turn, and it's not so important, you know, make them mill 6 cards or whatever, because I want to be able to have him ready to have your opponent deck out. So very great card. Strongest card in the deck, I think, and definitely you want to see one per game. And next up, we have 3 wedge formation. This card is very good. Being an orange, black, green, it's on color for everything you want it to do. It's a green to be able to trade useless Peace to Tyrannies or whatever else out of your hand that you don't need at the time. It's good to heal Demolisher, because I mentioned earlier, Demolisher is ranged in this mode, and he's melee in bot mode, so it's 36 health total, but the way I look at it is if you play at least one of these per game, that's 37 health total. If you play 2, that's 38 health total, etc., etc. So it's the heal one isn't that big of a deal, but then in some games it actually really is, especially against other blue decks and things like that. Like, they're not doing a whole bunch of damage except for with their big guy. So you can definitely scale pretty nice. This card, even in general, like when I play General or Lord Megatron in the Airstrike Patrol version, I think this card still needed to be played at 3 no matter what, because it is an orange, black, green, and you know, orange green of course just makes the Airstrike Patrol plus 3 attack, you know, just with the 1 orange green flip. And even just cycling something as simple as cycling a improvised shield or whatever out of your hand for this wedge formation, and even if your turn was like a strong upgrade and then play wedge formation just to cycle and draw another card into your deck, it's totally fine. There's a card in Yu-Gi-Oh called Upstart Goblin, and you draw a card and give your opponent 1,000 life points. So you both start with 8,000 life points. Life points technically don't matter. You can always win with at least 1 life point. I used to think the card was bad, but then I understood that if you play 3 of those cards in your deck, you're playing with a 37 card deck. That's obviously better odds than playing with a 40 card deck, and you know, you'll be able to see your power cards a lot quicker, a lot sooner than your opponent. And there's actually one player in the game that made the card so good, and that everybody started playing it and understanding the power of a smaller deck that you can legally play technically. And the card actually, Upstart Goblin, got limited to 1. So I look at this card as Upstart Goblin for Transformers, and it's actually fine in a deck, even if you don't get the second or third effect with the melee and specialist tag. So, but you will in this deck, because you know, Demolisher is melee, of course, as long as he's alive. Next up, we have a card that I've been playing around with, actually from slots 1 to 3 a lot, but it is some direct damage, and there, you know, sometimes you really don't ever want to have to waste. You know, I'm a big advocate for direct damage, and you really don't want to ever waste an attack on a character that has 1 health left. So I like to actually lure my opponent into thinking that their bot is something that I'm going to have to waste an attack into, because of course you have to deal this to a tapped enemy, and I'll actually hold this. Like, if I could have killed it when it was tapped, when I don't need to, I'll actually hold it and wait till the wheel turn and focus on other characters. And then when they go on the wheel turn and go sit in that 1 health character, and they're like, aha, you have to waste an attack, and all your attacks are going to be somewhat strong. You know, my deck is a bold based deck, and you know I'm trying to get this piercing, but still they'll send that character in, and then that's when I'll use the rock toss and then get rid of that character. Now I can go attack whoever I want. So I like to use my armed hovercrafts like that. I like to use all my direct damage like that and actually try to trick my opponent into you know, doing those type of things. But this card is on color. It's orange black, so yeah, you know, that's really all there is to say about that. And it does come up every now and then, but it needs to, you know, until we get more cards from wave 5 that can potentially replace this card. I'll probably still play 1 because it is direct damage, but yeah. Next up, we have Fight for Position, another orange-black card in this deck. This card is very good. Of course, we always compare this to Supercharge as soon as we see it, but it does trade 1 bold for a black icon. So at least when you flip it, like when you flip Supercharge, obviously you only get +1 attack. But if you're facing a heavy blue deck and they hit a fortification you, those Supercharges don't help you at all. But Fight for Position does, of course, along with the rest of the black icons that will give you that Pierce 1. So. And next up, we have a card that was Supercharged, speaking of Supercharged, but now it is Heated Battle. I don't know, because I think the deck ends up being like 25 oranges, 23 or 24 blacks, and then like 6 whites, 1 green, 4 blues, you know, so I don't know. I'm going to have to play games to see if like Supercharged is actually better. Generally when I build decks, I like to have at least 4 to 6 whites in my any deck I play, whether it's orange or blue. So I don't know that this should be supercharged, and I'll be okay with just 3 whites, which are the sturdy javelins, which we'll talk about here in a while. But heated battle does help you manipulate. I've had games where my opponent had 6 cards left in their deck, and it was like, or 6 or even 5 cards left in their deck, and you can only guess how many whites they have left. So I'll like look through their scrap pile. You know, guys, I'm an advocate of looking through my opponent's scrap pile for so many different things and information. That's why my head hurts after a lot of these games, because I'm always analyzing. But so looking through my opponent's scrap pile, and I see they have 5 whites in their scrap pile, and they have like 4 whites in their scrap pile and 1 on the field. So I'm thinking, it's like, I wonder if they have any more whites in their deck. Those are the type of things I think about. So I'm like, so you play, so like if without heated battle, what I'm saying is like I'll attack, and then like I think the first things first is I get greedy with Megatron's effect. I won't flip him sometimes because I value that extra 1 defense. So I'll be way too conservative with Megatron, and then my opponent will do something that'll make them deck out on purpose to dodge Megatron's effect. So this will just kind of force them to be able to deck out in a lot of situations, you know, when they have those last couple of cards in their deck. And then plus, of course, the best situation is to be able to attack with Lord Megatron when they do have those little bit of cards left in their deck. So Megatron's attack can scale up and be able to get that nice burn damage. So I'm going to test it. Like I said, I don't know if it's good or not, and I don't know if it's better than Supercharge. I don't know if I need 6 whites in here. Only time will tell, and when I have a whole bunch of ugly flips and get upset about it, I don't know then, so we'll see about it. The one green I was talking about in the deck is Reprocess. One thing I want to talk about with Reprocess before I go any further, disregard that it's just a green, disregard that it heals 2, disregard that it's not on color for whatever deck you're playing. Take my word for it, this card is great. I think a lot of people looked at this card automatically and said this card's trash because it's not orange green, which would have been insane. No, Airstrike, I don't think so. It couldn't even be white green, I don't think. I think white green would have been too good. It needed to just be a soul green because of its power level. Ramming Speed and Vaporize are outclassed at this point, with this card being out now. Yes, the heal, I mean, I'll put it like this. There's a lot of games where you just won't see Ramming Speed, and you know you're just milling them. But when you always mill this, you're always able to get this, and always able to get rid of your opponent's sparring gear. You're always able to. I'll get rid of my opponent's energy packs off Galaxy Prime any day and let them heal 2. The heal 2 a lot of times does not matter. I've played enough games to vouch that it does not matter. When I first saw it, I thought the icon thing was going to be an issue. I loved the effect. I didn't care about the heal 2. I love the effect in general. I thought, I was like, man, just a green, but I was like, it'd have been too good with even like, I mean, I guess it could have had a black icon, which would have still been cool, but it's fine as is. Reprocess is very good, period. And I think you should definitely consider playing it. If you haven't, if you're still playing Vaporize or Ramming Speed, please take those out of your deck. Those cards are outclassed now. Like I said, with this green card, you can, like, instead of playing 2 Ramming Speeds, you can play this 1 Reprocess and see it twice per game guaranteed, versus Ramming Speed, which you might not see at all. The card's very good. And last but not least is a flex spot, and I don't know if it's needed in here. I was playing 3 at one point when my space was, you know, all mixed up and I had other cards in or out of the deck. But I do like rollout because every single effect of the tanks all trigger when, you know, of course, flip to when they're flipped to alt mode. So it is nice to be able to like flip Impactor and Demolisher back and be able to draw 2 cards. I'd like to at least try to draw 2 cards with Demolisher at least twice per game if I can, at least once. So you know, with the way the flip sequences work with the deck, it actually is kind of hard to get Demolisher to draw at least 2 cards without a card like Rollout or Hunker Down. So if you don't see Hunker Down, you want to see the Rollout. I want to fit more, but I am playing 40 cards to this list. It's cut down to 40. Otherwise, if I wanted to be stubborn and play 42, I would add 2 more Rollout because I do like how the effect works with the tanks in the deck. So. And that's it for the upgrades. Next up, we have 3 RR Disruptor Blade. Now, this is another card that I'm going to be testing and see if it needs to be Crowbar or not. I'm not playing Crowbar in the deck. It's like, okay, do I value the 2 Pierce, the 2 Pierce from the 2 black icons and the 1 less attack and the grenade launcher like effect? Now, or do I value a card like RR Disruptor Blade? Now, again, they're about a little over half the deck has black icons. So I'm like, I don't know which one will be better. I don't know if like that extra 1 Pierce, you know, and scaling up my Pierce is going to be better. I think I just have to play both of them to see which is better. This spot needs to be either RR or the Crowbar. So next up we have Combat Dagger. This card 8 hours ago, as I'm recording this video, was Grenade Launcher. But I actually took Grenade Launcher out of the deck. It's just on color, and it does give you Bowl 1. So you know, you put it on Demolisher. It's technically Bowl 5. You know, you flip it a whole bunch more cards, and again, it's just on color. So, and the goal isn't about like super high attack, like I'm hitting you for 16. This deck is about piercing and getting through for guaranteed damage. So that's the route I'm going with this deck. So we'll see how well it works out. Next up, we have one of the best cards in Wave 4. Sturdy Javelin I like a lot. Very good card, obviously, from the set. Most times, now, of course, you can put this on a melee character and it gets +2 attack, but it'll never fall off. So I generally don't want to put this on Demolisher unless it's towards the end of the game and I just need a +2 attack weapon and it's the only one I have. But you can also just put it on Demolisher in his alt mode because he's ranged there. And dealing that 2 damage to any character makes it like, you know, pretty much a plasma burst, and just a very good card overall. And of course, you know, I love my direct damage, so gotta have it. And that rounds out my 6 whites. And then last but not least, we have a Scoundrel's Blaster. Now, I did have Enforcement Batons in the main deck, but I felt like the Enforcement Batons really didn't do a lot. You know, I like this as a guaranteed weapon to give to Megatron. That's really just it. I could really put it on you know, Demolisher if I need to, but most of the time this is Megatron's weapon to put on him. And of course, scaling that 4 damage to 6 direct damage to one of your opponent's characters, whatever they choose, is always, of course, good. Next up, we have one of the other best cards in the deck. We have, well, actually, let me not do that. Let me just get this like that. Boom, boom, boom. So if you guys want to take a picture, I do have some more room over here. Well, down here, I will talk about this next. Composite Armor. Composite Armor is, of course, the other best card in this deck. Ideally, you want to at least draw once per game, and ideally, being able to flip, use Hunker Down to grab this back from the scrap pile is really good. So it gets +1 attack and it gets +3 defense. This is where a lot of your defense and survivability is going to come from. Now, of course, it does get scrapped after battle when you get attacked. After you get attacked. But if you flip a black icon, you deal 1 damage back to the opponent. So this essentially makes it 9 burn cards in the deck. You have Composite Armor, Sturdy Javelin, and Rock Toss. So I like this card a lot. Obviously, you got to play it at 3. It's on color. It's orange-black. It's perfect for this deck. And of course, it's obviously the main reason why I even wanted to play orange-black tanks in the first place, and thanks to Captain Impactor, it made it come full circle and become possible. Next up, we have 2 increases in durability. This is one of the other cards I was talking about that also helps with survivability for this deck. So again, going back to the math with your health pool, you have 36 health as a 3-wide deck to start out with. And then, you know, as you play a wedge formation and potentially heal, not that that's your go-to play to look for these to heal, but when it does come up, you know, you scale up your HP with wedge formation, and then you also kind of hide and scale up your HP with increased durability. It's always a feel good to put this on Demolisher when your opponent is working on Demolisher to get him KO'd, and you got him within 3 health left, and then all of a sudden you hunker down or you play increased durability on Demolisher to give him +4 health. And of course, it's still susceptible to Bashing Shield, but of course, the only decks that really are playing that are Airstrike Control, which again is, of course, your worst matchup. So we are siding for it, and well, you know, I have to see how the matchup goes. If I get demolished by it, well, that just sucks, but we'll see. I probably will. But so 2 increases in durability, and of course, like I said, bringing it back with Hunker Down is very good. And just 1 Bashing Shield. Being that this deck is a predominantly heavy orange and black deck, the black being the most important icon in here, to get that pierce damage against these heavy blue decks, you only need 1 Bashing Shield. You really don't care about their extra paddings. You don't care about, they can have 7 extra paddings. You don't care, as long as you're still getting in for some decent pierce damage. You don't care about sparring gear, etc. You don't even care about sturdy armor, you know, any of the rock, paper, scissors armors. So just still the 1, just because. And I say just because, like, it is a green. It also gives the 1 extra defense to Demolisher. I was joking about it just because. You give this to Demolisher to give a +1 another flip, and you know, have more survivability with 5 defense. You can give it to Megatron. I'm trying to think of any armors that actually will hurt you. Maybe like a mirror match, potentially, or somebody's playing like an armor that they really care about or something like that. You always just still want to really get rid of it, get rid of your opponent's armors, and go from there. So that rounds out the armors. That's 6 armors, and then last but not least, we have 3 Immersed in Shadow and 1 Energy Pack. Now, Immersed in Shadow is a card that I was thinking about adding, but I was like, But I talked to Dan about it and John, and they were, you know, both mentioning to me was like Demolisher is one of the key parts of the deck, and of course he's your draw power in the deck. Yes, you do have wedge formation, but yeah, it's true. I mean, you want to try to keep him alive as long as possible. And if I know anything about the power level of this card and the annoyance of this card, I know from playing against Dave in the finals of PPG Columbus, Jesus, I'm going back to Ohio, huh? PPG Orlando. being able to get this on Demolisher and forcing them to attack into another character is pretty good, and have Demolisher be able to get in for another hit. And it is a utility, so you can still put one of your composite armors or increase durability or whatever on your character, and still be good to go. And of course, it's orange black, and it's one color for what your deck's trying to do. Have that scaled attack with the orange, and then fill in with the pierce and get in for some guaranteed damage. And then we had planned one energy pack, because energy pack is allowed to be able to equip onto Lord Megatron. He's 12 stars, so he meets the requirement, and he'll be at a whopping 21 stars. If you can get this and increase durability on him, he's at 25 stars, or 25 stars, Jesus, 25 health. So, you know, he's looking like Galaxy Prime at that point. Of course, it's not as easy to get, you know, equipment and things on Lord Megatron at like Galaxy Prime, but I mean, both those characters are on different axes. And of course, both of these decks are on different axes. So if you guys like this deck profile, I appreciate you guys liking the video, subscribing to the channel to check out more, because I would definitely be bringing some more videos. I like to do these deck profiles, and of course, you know, I love doing my commentary. So that's gonna do it for the deck profile. If you guys want to try this list out, try it out, come back and let me know on this video or on another video how it worked out for you, what changes you made that you saw that you liked, you didn't like about the deck, and let's work on this deck together. Why not? So again, guys, that's going to do it for the deck profile. One thing I will say, and I've noticed, and I hear myself more and more as I think about it, and I look back on my videos and I'm like, holy moly, I talk fast. I've always been like that. It's literally in my blood. When I say I'm going to work on it, and then 5 videos later, you see me still talking fast, and it's like he said he was going to work on it. I'm working on it mentally. It's going to take some time. Maybe I could talk slower like this. Maybe that'll work out, and maybe I can stop saying so much. That's another thing I want to work on with my speech, because no, I'm joking. But yeah, so there I go again with the I can go back, man. If I can get $1 for every time I say in my videos, I'd be rich and stop working tomorrow. But yeah, so there it is again. Geez, now it's gonna bother me. Okay, so again, if you guys appreciate the deck profile, or if you like the deck profile, I'd appreciate if, and I'm all flustered now, I'd appreciate if you guys subscribe to the channel. You know, it helps me out, it helps you guys out. You'll be able to know when I post a video, and you know, check my videos out. So I appreciate all the support going through 2020. If you're on, there it is again. If you're on the Facebook group, definitely check out the Transformers main page. They have spoilers coming out left and right. Hoping that we got another one tomorrow going into the weekend. We got a whole bunch to talk about. Proud to be a part of the community. Proud to be, you know, I just proud to be a part of the game in general. So it's been a ride, and the ride is nowhere near over. So you guys know what it is. You guys have a great day and or great night whenever you're catching this video. This is your 3-time champ. That's Dot, heading out. Peace.